Welcome in. Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate you guys joining us here for the training this Thursday. So we are going to kind of continue what we pretty much started the last training session. Last training session, we talked about the market temperatures, how to gauge it, how to find information on what the current market trends are, whether it's time for buyers, whether it's time for sellers, if it's uh, you know, longer days on the market for properties, if prices are going up or down, what exactly is the market looking like is what we went over last week, how to find that out. Um, in sort of a continuation of that, we are kind of going into buyer's interview, right? Oftentimes, the market condition questions and that conversation comes up when you're talking to buyers, when you're talking to sellers, when you're talking to family, friends, just overall, that conversation a lot of times will come up when it's comes to real estate, especially as a professional. People know you are a professional. They'll ask you these kind of questions. Now, going into talking to a buyer, we will go over other people, such as investors, such as sellers, those conversations as well. However, we will start with the buyers today, just so that everybody who does deal with buyers, and I think that's most of us in real estate, a lot of times we deal with a lot more buyers. We kind of know what we're getting ourselves into. So, first things first, whenever you're meeting with a buyer, obviously it's going to change depending on the settings, right? So, you could be meeting with a buyer via event, whether you're at an event, whether it's a real estate event, non-real estate event, church, school, graduation, whatever the case may be, you might be meeting a buyer in that way. Sometimes you will meet that buyer from a referral, which means you actually have an appointment, you're sat with this buyer, whether it's somebody who you closed with in the past who says, hey, I have this person. Can you check with them? They're looking to buy. And you might have that conversation through that outlet, through that lead. Or you might just randomly start talking to somebody, such as a neighbor, such as somebody who is in line with you at the grocery store, whatever the case may be. Uh, a lot of the question or a lot of the conversation is going to be created on the spot, essentially, right? Because there is no blueprint of what that conversation will be like. I can't tell you, ask this question and expect this answer. Okay, it's not going to work like that. A lot of times, as you get these answers to some of these questions, or as the conversation goes, that's when you will have new questions. That's when you will have different information and kind of go off of that. So let's assume for the first one, for example, we're gonna say this person calls you randomly and they just, hey, is this XYZ? So I'll use my name. Is this Joel? I was given your number by a friend of mine who said you're a real estate agent. No problem. Thanks for calling me. How can I help you? That's how that conversation is going to pretty much start, right? When you're speaking to this person, in order to better help them, it's important that you find out where you're getting this lead or where they're coming from, right? Where they're coming from means person. So, like I said, if it was a lead from a past client, I want to know who that past client is because that'll gauge or help me understand what kind of person I'm talking to. If that past client was somebody who, let's just use an extreme example, was a doctor, for example, they're a doctor, had multiple practices. Now I know the person I'm speaking to may be in the medical field, may be a professional of some sort, and I kind of have an idea who I'm dealing with. So now certain questions I'm going to ask differently, right? How am I going to ask it differently? I might say, do you also do a practice? How did you meet that person? Right? Because it's not strictly right into business, right into real estate sales. You want to also kind of know who you're talking to on a more personal level. You want to get to know the person. It's not straight into by transaction. You want to also kind of say, hey, who are you? I want to know who you are as a person. They might be a good friend, right? Out of it, and at the end of the day, we treat our clients like friends, like family. So this might be the next friend or family that I'm going to be dealing with. So I want to know who they are. So finding out where they're coming from or who referred that person to you is important. That was an example, like I said, if somebody were to call you or get your information through somebody else or somewhere else. We've talked about marketing as well. Maybe you have flyers out that you handed. They say, hey, I got your information from a card you left on my car. We met at the Walmart a few weeks ago. Any of these examples as well. This is also helping you not only to know where this person's coming from and kind of have an idea still of who this person you're dealing with is, but it also helps you with your marketing material. What's working, what's working strongly. I'm making notes of, okay, this last month, I've already had 5, 6 people contact me from this exact same parking lot at this Walmart. Or I've had 6, 7 people contact me from this apartment specifically. Now I know that type of marketing material or that area has demand, or that marketing material is working, right? So now I can duplicate that somewhere else, or I could focus on that marketing material or in that area. Any questions on that first? Okay. So now you know who that person is. You got a little bit of information. Okay, I got your information from this person. Now I know who I'm talking to. That person, I helped them buy it. It was a great deal. They were quick. I did take care of them. It was a rough transaction, but we got it done. That also helps build confidence. Let's say you had a pretty rough transaction, and a lot of these transactions have their own issues or they have their own obstacles. So if you got over those obstacles and that client recognizes, you were able to help them get through those obstacles, now this person who's coming to you will also know what you're capable of. So you could use that to your advantage. Like, yeah, I dealt with these things, but it happens, and I'm going to be able to help you if we have to deal with any issues as well. So now we go and move forward and we go into the second thing. What are you looking for? Okay. Some people we speak to in real estate, um, a lot of times they're simply trying to have an idea of what exactly they could do. They're trying to have an idea of what home ownership looks like. They're trying to have an idea of the cost of getting into a home. These are the things that they're kind of thinking about in their head, right? So when you're asking the questions, when you're finding out more information about them, you want to know, what are you looking for? Are you just looking to see what it costs to buy a house? Are you looking just to see what is the market temperatures looking like? Because we did just go over that. Are you looking to find out how much you could be approved for? What exactly are you looking for? Townhome, condo? And we got to kind of really figure it out and narrow it down so that we're able to help that person better. Okay. If that person is looking for a townhome, for example, certain areas have more townhomes than others. Certain areas have no townhomes, for example. So you might be like, okay, cool. You're looking for a townhome. What area are you looking at? Okay, this area does have a few, but if you go a little bit further out, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes out, you actually find a lot more options, a lot more affordable options, a lot nicer ones, newer construction ones, whatever the case may be. And that'll help them also to really say, oh, okay, I never thought of that. Just 10, 15 minutes down the road, I could save money. 10, 15 minutes down the road, I could get a newer townhome. And this is kind of the information you're kind of collecting. I'm looking for a single family home, something not too big, just a backyard for me and my kid and things like this, just so that you can really gauge, okay, this area, backyards, not a huge thing. A lot of the houses over there have smaller backyards. But if we go to this area, backyards are huge, a lot of acreage, lot sizes are large. Now you're able to really give them an idea of where they could be looking. Do you guys understand that? Okay. So then next question, right? And like I said, as these conversations are going, information that they're giving you might change the way the conversation ends, right? Or the way the conversation goes. So they might ask you a question in between some of these questions that you're asking them. They might tell you they have family. They might tell you they have school, work, all these different things that you're going to end up having to pivot or understand and possibly ask extra or more questions to really get an idea of who you're speaking to, what they're looking for, and what you can do for them. So next question you could also ask them, how many people are in the household? What does this help you with? This helps you with not only figuring out how much house that person may need, but it also, like I said, on a personal level, allows you to get more information. Sometimes people don't want to answer, or some agents don't want to ask certain questions, right? I may not want to ask somebody, are they married? I may not want to ask that person how many kids they have, right? But I might say, how many people are looking to be in this household, or how many people are in the household right now? And that gives me an idea, okay, there's five people in the household. Cool. What are we talking? Kids, we're talking adults. And they start to give you some information. Oh, it's me and my husband. Oh, it's me and my wife. Oh, it's me and my two kids. Me and my cousin, me and my grandma. They give you a little bit more information, and now you know what you're dealing with, who you're dealing with. This person has a larger family. This person has extended family with them. This person is a newlywed. This person is a younger person. This person is a new parent, right? So they might just have one kid, two kids, whatever the case may be. And like I said, you want to be more personal. I'm not just asking questions and making it a business transaction. How many people are in the household? Oh, me and my husband, and we have a daughter. I'm not just gonna be like, cool, noted, keep going, right? I might get a little more personal with them. Oh, that's nice. How old is the daughter? When was she born? Kind of get oh, that's nice. That's you guys are new parents. How's that experience? I know that was life-changing. I'm sure it's been great. And you really just start to get a feel for the person, really start to connect with that person. Because, for example, myself with no kids, I might talk to somebody and say, oh, you're a parent. That's great. That's super wonderful. New parent. Myself, I'm young. I don't have any kids yet. Look forward for it in the future. I bet it's a beautiful experience. And they start to really tell you, yes, it was great. We were scared, but overall, it was a great experience. We love it. And you really start to connect with that person. Okay. A lot of times, your transactions or your clients, your business will come from those connections. There are people, we've talked about that as well in the past. There are people who are strictly business. They don't want to give too much information. They don't want to get too personal. They are strictly to the point. And depending on the setting, we've talked about that. Depending on the setting, you may find yourself in a situation where you don't have time to be as personal. Okay. What does that look like? If I'm at a Walmart parking lot and I'm having this conversation with somebody, I may not have time to be personal with that person to the point we're talking about grandmas and upbringings and favorite foods and favorite car. May not have time to do that. I may only have time to give them basic information. I might be able to collect some information from them that pertains to what they're looking for or pertains to real estate, but I may not have time to get too deep into things like uh may not get too deep into things like household, who's in the household, kids, dogs, pools, and all these things. Questions there on identifying who you're speaking to? Cool. So now in our conversations as well, you want to provide information. Let's say you've had this conversation, you kind of got a quick overview, quick introduction of who this person is, how they got your information, or how this conversation came about. You kind of got an idea of what they're looking for based off of their household size. Now we're going to give them information. They've given us information. Now we have to give them information. What information are we going to give them? This is essentially the sales pitch. Okay. I don't want to use the word sales pitch because it sounds a little bit weird, but this is where that person you're speaking to essentially sees if you are the person that can help them, if you're somebody who's knowledgeable, if you're somebody who's able or capable of helping them with what they need, right? So now I have to give them all the information that is relevant to them and that they might feel will help them to make a decision, whether it's to buy right now, whether it's to prepare. Maybe it's just starting a conversation. Maybe it's not something they were even thinking about, but now that you've provided this information to them, they can start thinking about it. Down payment needed. Okay. This is going to be one of the biggest things a lot of people who are looking to get into a home, especially for the first time, are worried about. How much money is needed to get into this property? Down payment varies, and we know this. Till this day, a lot of people still believe you need 20% down to buy a house. Till this day, a lot of people think you need $20,000, $30,000 to get into a house. Down payment needed is going to vary from person to person, loan to loan, and there's going to be programs available, right? So we already know conventional 3% is the lowest down payment. There are some specialty loans that are out there. I think like Rocket Mortgage is doing a 1% down, for example, with their own criterias, of course. But 3% down is pretty much what you would say minimum on a conventional first-time home buyer that could use that. Then you have 3.5% FHA. Okay. A lot of people you talk to will not know the difference between FHA, conventional, USDA, VA. They may have heard of it. They may not understand the differences. They might not understand what's the advantage between one and the other, the pros and cons of each different loan, what qualifies for one and what doesn't qualify for the other. They may not understand these things, and you may not have time to provide that information right there on the spot, but you can give them an overview, right? So 3% down conventional, 3.5% FHA, 5% conventional are pretty much those three lower down payment amounts that you would let them know. So now, if they were curious, or maybe they never even thought about home ownership, they always thought it would cost them way too much to get into a home. So they never even thought about this. Now you're telling them 3% down, they could get into a home. $300,000, that's $9,000. $9,000 for a down payment. You might have, okay, you might have somebody who has, let's say, $15,000 in the bank, $20,000 in the bank, and they thought they were going to have to save 60, 70, $100,000 to get into a house. Now you just told them it only will be $9,000 for the down payment. This has caught their attention. They had that in the bank. They could put that into a house. So now that you're telling them this is the minimum on a conventional, it intrigues them. You can kind of elaborate more on that. They might have some questions for you, like, are you sure? What's the catch? They might even ask you, what is the catch? Why is it so little? Things like this. And you're pretty much going to be explaining to them, hey, there are some myths out there. Those myths are 20% down minimum. Why would somebody recommend 20%? Now you start explaining MI. And once again, it definitely depends on the setting. You may not be able to talk about all this in a 5, 10, 15-minute conversation in the Walmart parking lot. But if you're sitting with that person in person, you guys took an appointment. Maybe you guys are at an event. Sometimes these events are going for hours and hours. Maybe it's a kids event, right? So they might be running around and you're at the park and you're just talking to this person. You might have more time to break it down and explain these things. Over the phone, you might be able to explain it more. But in certain settings, you may not be able to get too deep into it. Give me one second. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, now, secondly, market trends. A lot of people, they get news, they hear news, they're on social media, they're seeing crazy headlines, especially right now. Right now in this market, what are you seeing on the headlines? You're seeing recession fears. You're seeing interest rates going up. You're seeing home buyers are buying less. You're seeing prices coming down. You're seeing all kinds of very, very bold headlines, right? You as a professional have to provide facts to these clients, okay? There's a difference between headlines. There's a difference between headlines and facts, okay? These headlines a lot of times will give you a big something to grab your attention. And then when you really go down the article, you find what they're really referring to. For example, just today, I seen a headline that said rates are higher today or something along those lines. And when you went into the article, it said based off of or compared to the last 3 weeks is what it was saying, right? So you have one person telling you rates are coming down, then you have a headline telling you rates are going up. And then when you go further down into the article, which a lot of times people don't even go into the article, you see it's actually saying within the last 3 weeks or within the last 2 weeks, it's up compared to the beginning of the month, it's up. However, overall, the trend, you might notice that it's going down, right? So you want to make sure when you're talking to these folks, you're providing them with this information. You're making sure they understand it. You're making sure they're confident, right? Okay, you're hearing prices are coming down. Yes, prices are coming down. Here's when we're seeing it's coming down. After 30 days on the market, that's when we're starting to see price cuts. We're seeing in certain areas prices are coming down quicker than other areas. You might say something like Belle Glade, for example. Prices are going down a lot quicker in Belle Glade compared to Central Orlando, some compared to South Florida, like Miami. If you're in Miami, prices are not going down as fast as places like Okeechobee, right? So completely different markets depending on where that person is looking for. And you might even get that information based off of that previous slide here when you're collecting some information, finding out who the person you're talking to, what they're looking for. They might tell you where they're looking or what kind of property you're looking for, and you're able to kind of tell them based off of what you gave me, where you want to be and what kind of property you're looking for. Here is what the market is showing, right? You want to give them that information. Then you have the programs and assistance. Okay, what's available to them? If I'm talking to a first responder, there may be a program or programs available to those first responders. I want to make sure they know, hey, we talked about that $9,000 you need for a 300K house. We have a program that actually help you with closing costs and down payment. So that number might even be lower. Okay. You want to explain to them down payment assistance varies per county. You might say, hey, this county has this program available. But you want to also make sure they understand the requirements. Certain programs have a minimum credit score. Certain programs have restrictions as far as your legal working status. Certain programs have restrictions, like I said, for first responders, it might be specifically. It may not be for everybody. It may be for a specific type of field, right? So you want to make sure they're aware, hey, do you actually have credentials? You say you're a first responder. What are your credentials that will prove you're a first responder in order to qualify for this program? And so on and so forth. There's a lot of other requirements, income requirements, and limits like that, purchase price as well. You want to give them some of that information as well, just so that they understand what they're getting into and what's available to them. Okay, so just those three things to start. Those three things, you've provided quite a bit of information to that person you're having a conversation with. If they didn't think they could afford a house based off of money needed to put down, you might have opened their eyes to make them realize they do have enough money to put down. If they were worried about the market and based off of headlines and social media, what they're seeing, you've probably given them confidence. Oh, okay, that's why I'm seeing price cuts because the houses I was looking at were on the market for 30 days. They were on the market for 60 days. So that makes sense for the prices to be coming down. You might give them confidence with programs, right? They're hearing all kinds of first-time home buyers programs. You're hearing people who participated in them before. They want to know if they would be able to take a part of those programs. And now you've given them those options along with some of the criteria, and they may or may not know, or they may or may not qualify for them, but now they know if they do or do not based off of the criteria you gave them. Okay. Now, next thing is the process itself. A lot of times we have conversation with these buyers or potential buyers, and they don't truly know what the process looks like. Okay, this is their first time doing anything related to buying a house. They may not even have done an actual apartment rental application. They may be renting from a family friend. They may be renting from a mom and pop landlord, right? So they may not even know how the actual process of owning a home or getting into a home looks like. So you give them a brief overview. The key word here is brief. Why is it brief? Because even if you are in a setting where you're able to talk to that person for 30, 40, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour, you still want to make sure you're giving them information that's relevant. Okay. You want to make sure you're giving them information that they understand as well. So, brief overview. I'm going to start with pre-approval process, home searching process, inspection, closing. That's pretty much the timeline, right? And a very simple breakdown. It's pretty much get pre-approved, start looking for a house, get under contract, inspection, go to the closing table for the most part, right? Now, if you do have a little more questions in between that, they might have heard of the word appraisal, for example. You can explain what the appraisal process is and what it looks like for them as the potential buyer. They might have questions on the inspection. What is the inspection including? You can give them an idea of what the inspection report would include. What are some of the additional inspections they could get? For example, if they're buying something in a rural area, they might have septic tank, they might have wells, they might have uh, what is it? Farm animals, for example, barns, things like this. Then you kind of give them an idea of those extra inspections they could still do so that they know what they're getting into. Hey, a basic inspection, 4-point wind mitigation. This is how much it's going to cost you, and this is what it's going to include. They might be like, oh, okay, but the property I'm looking for also has a septic tank. Okay, no problem. If you know you're going to get a septic tank, that inspection itself is going to cost an additional X amount of dollars. And what are they looking for? Size of the tank, last time it was serviced. Is it cracked? Is it correctly installed? Things like this. So they really have a good idea of what they're expecting. They might have questions on getting under contract. Okay, who does the contract? Do you do it? Do I do it? You explain that to them. How does the contracting process works? Do you have to send a listing price? Are you able to send less? Are you able to send more? What if it doesn't appraise? Like I said, a lot of people have heard of the word or heard of an appraisal, so they might have questions on it. What if it doesn't appraise? What if it's not worth how much we sent? Now you explain to them that process or that part of the process as well. Okay, closing. Where is that going to happen? When does that happen? You explain that to them as well. And that brings us to the next thing, the timeline. Some people think it takes 60 days, it takes 4 months, it takes a whole year to get into a house. You explain that to them as well. What is the timeline like? Okay, from the pre-approval, if you gave me all your documents or if you reached out to a loan officer and gave them the information, you could expect your pre-approval probably within the 24 to 48 hours. So you tell them that and they have an idea, no problem. This is when I could expect to receive my pre-approval. Now that I have my pre-approval, how long does it take to find a house? You explain to them, hey, the house process is all up to you. Okay. If you want to go out today, we can go out today. If you want to go out tomorrow, we can go out tomorrow. If you want to go out next week, it is completely up to you how long the actual home search process takes.
Okay, all right.
Can you guys hear
So
me?
there's a few deals. You got anything? Same
It says
here, bro.
somebody says seems like you're muted. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Uh, make sure. Okay, perfect. Yes. So timeline. You tell them, yeah, we could go out to these houses this week. We can go out to the houses next week. And you give them an idea of what that process is like. We can go look at 6 houses in one day. We can go look at 10 houses in one day, depending on what's on the market. We might only see 2, 3 houses in one day. That process of you finding the right house for you completely depends on that person, right? So you let them know that it completely depends on you, how long it takes to actually find a house. Then you explain to them, once you get under contract, how long does the actual contract take or the loan process take? Okay. Because you want to make sure they have a good idea. If I have a lease that's expiring, let's say we're in March right now, I have a lease expiring in the end of June. When should I start looking? You want to give them an idea. Okay. From pre-approval to actual closing, you may find yourself spending about 30 days. You may find yourself spending about 45 days. You may find yourself spending 60 days. You depends on if they're using programs. It depends on how long it takes for them to find a house. It depends on when the sellers are willing to close. All these things are a factor in it, right? So you want to make sure they understand that so they have an idea when they should start the pre-approval process, when they should start going ahead and letting their apartment know, hey, I may not be renewing my lease, things like this, right? So they have a better idea so they can plan better. So you explain that whole entire timeline. Some people think, well, I heard somebody took a whole year to get into their house. Why did it take them a whole year? You could also explain that to them. Well, certain processes do take longer. There could be many factors. For a year, the easiest factor, more than likely, is going to be the new construction, right? If you have a new construction property, they haven't even broke ground yet, you're looking at about 8 to 10 months. Okay. A lot of these new constructions are looking at about 8 to 10 months to actually go from groundbreaking to final inspection, closing. Okay. In between that as well, you could also explain that timeline may be stretched out a little bit. Let's say that client goes into the property for their walkthrough, the inspection happens, they just put up the studs, they put up the frame, right? Inspection happens and they see the frame was not installed correctly. They might see the plumbing was not done correctly. All these things would have to be corrected. If those need to be corrected, you might find that the closing takes a little bit longer to happen because these things are going to put them behind 1 week, 1 day, 3 days, whatever the case may be, depending on what needs to be corrected. So that is also important information that you would possibly provide to that person when you're speaking to them, just so that they have an idea. Like I said, they're able to better plan and prepare how long it will take them to get into the house from start to finish. Okay, so one, two, three, four, five part components here are pretty much bullet points of information that you're giving that person so that you can really give them an idea of what the process is like, how knowledgeable you are as well. So within this conversation, they're also paying attention. Think of it as them interviewing you as well. I'm sure a lot of people, there are millions of you realtors out there. I'm sure a lot of people know realtors. I'm sure a lot of people have spoke to realtors in the past. When they speak to you and you're giving them certain information, you're giving them information a different way. They might find that you might be more knowledgeable than some people that they spoke to. They might find you have more resources, more information than some of those people that they've spoken to. Some of those people have probably never mentioned first-time homebuyer programs, and you just mentioned it to them. Some of those people may not have explained the process for them to get into a house, and you just explained it to them. So now they have a more confidence in you. They understand your level of knowledge, and they might be more confident to use you or ask you more questions as well. Any questions? Okay. Then we have the be on top of it part of it, right? So we have these conversations. And we're gonna go back again. Let's say our conversation started in the Publix parking lot. We're at the Publix parking lot. We had a quick conversation. We sat there for 10, 15, 20 minutes just having a quick conversation. Now, where do I go from there? The last thing I want to do is get in my car and go home. Okay? Reason being, I don't know the person's information. They probably won't have my information if I didn't give it to them yet. So you want to make sure you're getting that person's information. It's not the same as giving your information. When you give somebody your information, you leave it in their hand to essentially reach out to you. That business card could get lost. That contact information, they might forget it. If you text them, even, right? Texting them your information, it might get lost in the text. They're probably got bags in their hand from the grocery shopping they did. They might just have put them in the car and they're ready to leave, sit in the car, start listening to music, completely forget who they just spoke to. They might remember the conversation, they might remember the information, but they may not remember who they spoke to. With social media, it is a little bit easier to find people, right? So maybe if you have a catchy name, maybe if your name is simple, whatever the case may be, they might be able to look you up, right? Joel. All right, there was a Joel. I can't remember. Let me look on Instagram. Boom, Instagram, Joel, realtor. They might find me. They might be like, oh, yeah, that was the person I spoke to. But to save everybody the trouble, get their information because now it puts it on you as the agent to possibly put it on your calendar, put it in your phone, put it into your pipeline, and make sure you're staying on top of it by reaching out to them, right? That's the follow up. We've talked about that as well before. Following up with them and saying, hey, I know we spoke 2 days ago. I know we spoke last week. Just wanted to see if you had any other questions. Just wanted to see if you go ahead and give it a try as far as getting pre-approved. Just wanted to see if you had any concerns when it comes to home buying, right? Because maybe they get all this information, they go on their banking app and find out, well, their score is a 600 score, right? Okay, your 600 score. They might feel like they can't buy right now, they have to wait. If you follow up with them and they have this concern, they might think that it's not high enough, right? You could let them know, well, here are the minimum scores. Do you know why your score is at 600? Do you have high utilization on your credit cards? You could kind of try to gauge and help that person, right? The only way you're able to follow up and get in contact with that person is if you collect their information. So getting their information. Sometimes people don't want to give their information, right? So that you can't control. Some people, you're a complete stranger at the end of the day, a lot of times. So you might say, you know what? I'm not going to, or they might say, I'm not going to give that person my information. Maybe they just give you their social media. Here's my Facebook. Here's my uh, work number, whatever the case may be. They might give you something small just to keep in contact. They may not just give you their phone number straight up. But if they do give it to you, make sure you do your part in following up. Set up an appointment. That's going to be the next thing. You've had this conversation, you've given them information. Set up a time where you guys can actually sit down more formal, have pretty much the same conversation, but a little bit more in depth, more focused strictly on home buying, right? So before you might have had a conversation with that person just to kind of give them some quick overview of what to expect, what it's like to get into a house. But now, if you set an appointment with that person, you're able to sit down and really answer any questions they have. It's not hot outside. You sit down in a cafe, you sit down in your office, you sit down in a park. It's not, in a comfortable setting where they're able to give you information, you're able to get information, you're able to give information, and really see and come up with a game plan for that person. Then you have provide resources, right? Providing resources, what does that look like? We talked about those programs. Those programs are resources, contact information. Like I said, you might, as an agent, you should have loan officers you work with. You should have loan officer contacts that you could provide. You might say, hey, here's the loan officer I work with. I know they're on top of it. They can get you pre-approved quickly. Give them a call, give them a text, send them an email, and they'll get you pre-approved. They'll get you pre-qualified. They will assess your overall information just to see where you would be if you wanted to get into the process or start the process, right? So provide them with that. Provide them with resources such as the slides. We have the first time buyer slide that we all have access to. That slide, what does it have? It has a breakdown of what that inspection entails. It has a breakdown of what a pre-qualification is, what a pre-approval is. It has a breakdown of the difference between FHA and conventional. Having that information for them, that will actually help them to really see it, not just hear it, but see the information in front of them so that they can know exactly how to move forward. And any other resources that you may have, you could always provide as well. So then you have leave a token. What is a token? Like I said, those business cards can get lost. Those cards can get thrown away on accident, on purpose, whatever the case may be. It's still considered a token. If you have business cards, give it to somebody. Let them hold that business card. Especially, we talked about having different types of business cards. There are hundreds and hundreds of different types of business cards, unique business cards, right? If you have a unique business cards, even if they may not even think about the information on the card, they might say, well, this is the first time I've seen a business card that looks like this. This is the first time I felt a business card that feels like this. And they might hold that card in their car, in their purse, in their wallet, in their house, just because of how unique that card is, right? That's considered a token. We have pens, right? You have pens, notepads, book bags, drawstring bags, all kinds of different marketing material you could give that person. And it reminds them of you, the person that stopped them that day, that person that took the time to have that conversation with them, information that you gave them, it will remind them of it. Okay. So let's say if you give them a pen, right? A nice pen. Now, if they are using this pen, they're going to remember where they got the pen, especially if it has your information on it. They're going to remember, oh, I did have that conversation with that person. Let's say you give them a keychain. If they put it's a nice keychain, they might put it on their car keys. They might put it on their house keys. Now they remember that person they had a conversation with. That's where I got this keychain from. So give them a small little token if you're able to. That'll also help them to remember who you are just based off of that token. They might forget everything else, the whole conversation, the setting. They might forget the day. They might forget why you came up on to them, how they got in contact with you. However, with that token, they might remember this is the person that I did speak to, or this is the realtor that gave me this token, gave me this keychain, gave me this bottle opener, whatever the case may be. Any questions on that? No questions. Okay, so now as agents, I'm sure you guys have had conversations with folks before, right? So I'm gonna kind of leave it open to you guys now to kind of give me an idea when you guys are having these conversations, what are some of the questions? What are some of the things you guys are seeing that people are asking you? What is the conversation looking like? Where does it start? Whether it's at the store, you're seeing you're having more of these conversations, whether it's at the parent-teacher conference, you see you're having more of these conversations. Where do you find yourself having real estate related conversations, and what are some of the questions that you guys have found a lot of people are asking you, and how have you responded to them? So this is leaving this up to you guys. Anybody? Nobody. Okay. All right. Well, if nobody has had conversations like this before, do make sure you guys are going out there and talking to people. Reach out to people. If you guys already have people in your pipeline, follow up on with them, right? So you've probably already, and you might not remember it off the top of your head right now, but I'm sure you guys have had certain conversations before. Do this part, follow up, try to make sure you get a hold of them, set up an appointment, whether it's to get them pre-approved or just discuss what a game plan is, or still early into the 2025 year. You could say, hey, I know you were thinking about buying a house last year, or I know you were thinking of getting into something. It's early. Let's plan for end of the year. Let's plan for the summer. Let's plan for next month. Or I remember you telling me your lease was expiring in a few months. Okay, I remember you told me your lease was expiring in April. Let's go ahead and get it on top of it so that you don't have to renew that lease. Let's get you into the house. So do your part, follow up, talk to people. Now that you have this information, use that information to your advantage. Make sure you're following up, you're giving them information, you're giving them resources, and you're asking the right questions, right? You asking questions will allow them to answer those questions and possibly come up with questions to ask you in return. So, thank you guys for joining. I appreciate you guys attending this training with me. If you guys do have any questions for me, always feel free to contact me. If you guys want to, via email, text, call, just shoot me a text if you want to have a quick questions in regards to the training. This will be available online as well, the recording, and then you guys will have access to the slide as well if you guys want to review those later on. Other than that, that's all I have for you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.